If we had to make a bad drug legal, the worst choice was alcohol. It's definitely the case. 50% of murders take place in an alcohol-fueled environment. Either the victim or the perpetrator or both is drunk. It's almost the sole cause of domestic abuse. It's almost the sole cause of so-called date rape. If you dig into criminal behavior deeply enough, well, hell, you don't have to dig much at all before you find alcohol. It's also the only drug we know that actually makes people more aggressive. In fact, if you eliminated alcohol, you'd eliminate most interpersonal violence.
I think it's interesting that alcohol is legal, and yet, you know, you do terrible things.
You probably couldn't have made any a worse drug legal. I mean, about 10% of people become addicted to it one way or another.
Really?
And far more people than that abuse it. Yes, at least once in their life, yes. We did experiments at McGill showing that if you took drunk people and put them in a competitive environment where they could be aggressive and had them keep track of their aggression so they were actually conscious of it, they became more aggressive even rather than less. So yeah, alcohol's bad news, and it can turn perfectly good people into quite the impulsive and dim-witted monsters.
You know what's amazing to me is how the people who make alcohol get a free ride. I don't know how we got it in our heads to treat one like it's completely taboo, and the other we kind of shrug. I mean, it's crazy, right? It's like, this is the drug that is causing so many problems for young people, particularly on campuses.
Sure.
And the schools are hand in glove with the manufacturers of it.
Because it's socially acceptable.
You know, you might say, well, why do people drink too much? It's like, if you like alcohol, that's a stupid question.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, why do people drink too much? Well, because it's great. Yeah. You know, it's like, okay, so why stop? Well, you do stupid things when you're drunk. You hurt yourself. You compromise your health. It's really hard on the people around you. You tend to turn into a liar, and it screws up your life.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but it's pretty fun. Yeah, well, it is. But you need something better than that. And what's better isn't being straight and not making mistakes. It's like, that's all prohibition in some sense. What's better is, no, you need an adventure, man. You need to get out there and have something to do.
Yeah.
And something worth waking up for. And that's the substitute for the addiction. It isn't that you're trying to avoid booze exactly. It's that you're trying to restructure your whole life. If you're a drinker, then all your friends are drinkers, and you're used to drinking in every social situation. And the places that you go to socialize are places that you drink. And like, it's really built in as a whole set of habits. And so what you have to do is kind of redesign your life. You can't just stop drinking. You have to figure out what you're going to start doing instead of drinking. There's a hole that you have to fill.
So I said to my kids, no drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes.
I quit drinking when I was 27. You know, I mean, Northern Albertan culture was pretty damn hard drinking culture, like most northern places. And a number of my friends ended up alcoholic. You know, and well, all the people that I was in high school with and in college with were extremely hard drinkers. And I drank quite a lot till I was 27. And then I found that I couldn't, well, first of all, my life was taking a pretty professional turn. And second, I found that there was no bloody way I could write seriously and think seriously on an ongoing basis if I was hungover. So, and I got married and I was gonna have kids, and I thought, yeah, enough of this. And so, you know, I've watched too, as I've gone around the world, I've met very, very many people in many, many social occasions. And because I don't drink anything at all now, if I go out and watch people drinking, it makes everybody stupid and fuzzy-minded. And you know, the problem is when you're drinking, you think you're cool, but, you know, you have those same delusions that Homer Simpson's friend Barney had when he was drinking, that you're this kind of, you know, elegant and sophisticated comedian, and it just makes everybody stupid.
Starts off as a fun little thing, and then it turns into an escape, and then all of a sudden you don't remember why you're out there doing stuff.
And it just went from bad to worse. I hit the drink heavily on a daily basis. I was out all night partying with women of the night and not coming home. And I didn't care about boxing. I didn't care about living. I just wanted to die. And I was going to have a good time doing it while I was doing it. I used to drink and take drugs to get away from the depression, because when I was drunk or high, then I wouldn't think about being depressed. I thought about being I'm a boxing champion, or I feel great. But as we know, when the drink wears off, it only leaves you with a bad hangover and feeling even more depressed. For someone who suffers with mental health, the worst thing we can do to escape it is take drugs or alcohol.
But yeah, that's the most common approach.
And that's the common approach, because people we don't know.
Because I'm negative and I'm dark and I want to do bad stuff. I want to hang out in this neighborhood alone. That's dangerous to hang out in this neighborhood alone up here, right? It wants to kill everything. It wants to kill me too. I made the right decision. I made Cuz proud of me. I made myself proud of me. I hate myself. I'm trying to kill myself. I used to hate myself a lot, but I made myself proud of myself, and I don't do that much. And I was happy I did that. And maybe it was overwhelming to Teddy, and he didn't get it yet, but he has to know this is sincere. I don't want to fight you no more. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I was wrong. And I just wanted to make my amends. If he accepted or not, at least I could die and go to my grave and say I made my amends with everybody that I had hurt. You know, I want to change my life. I want to live a different life now. I want to live my sober life. I don't want to die. I'm on the verge of dying because I'm a vicious alcoholic. I haven't took drugs in 6 days. And for me, that's a miracle. I've been lying to everybody else and think I was sober, but I'm not. This is my 6th day. I'm never going to use again.
Because it's not spoke about. I was out drinking. I didn't care. Give up. Taking drugs, like I said. And it come to a point I was doing that for 18 months of my life. And I was out 2017 Halloween. I was a 400 pounds dressed up as a skeleton, and I go to this fancy dress party, and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, these are all young kids compared to me. I'm 30 and I feel like I was the oldest guy in there, like 29. I was like, what am I doing here? Is this what you want for your life? And I thought to myself, this is not me. And no matter how many people told me before this, where I was going wrong, what I was doing, you need to act your life. You can only change your life if you want to change it. And I left, and everyone said, are you going home early? I said, yeah. I left at 9 o'clock. I went home, and I got back home. I didn't say anything to the wife. I just went straight upstairs into a dark room, and I took the stupid skeleton suit off, and I was sat there, and I got on my knees and I was praying and begging God to help me. And at this point, I'd never begged or cried to God to help me before. I'd prayed a lot all my life, but I'd never been in this physical state before. I could feel tears running down my face. My chest was wet with tears because I knew I couldn't do it on my own. It wasn't possible for me. After praying for about 10 minutes, I got up and I felt the weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. And for the first time in years, I knew I was going to make a comeback. And I called my wife. I said, Paris. She said, what? She thought I was drunk coming home from the pub. I said, Monday morning, I start to regain mission to try and get the heavyweight championship of the world back.
I think there's an aspect of it that's clearly has to do with one's own morality, because it's too easy to jump on that wagon of it's a disease and my brain's been hijacked and I no longer have a choice in the matter. I think there's that element for sure, but past a certain point you have to stand up inside yourself and change. You know, everybody does with any issue. Ultimately, anything else is just a really, new age excuse, if you ask me.
Every time I had done something or said something that I regretted, it was when I was drinking. And I thought at one point, maybe I don't want to live a life where I'm continually or even sporadically wishing that I hadn't said or done something. And I'm very much unlikely to do that if I'm sober and clear-headed.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, if you're trying to stop drinking, you need something better than alcohol. And alcohol's pretty good.
Yeah.
So you better find something a lot better, man. Yeah, and it is. And then esteemable people do esteemable things. It's like, yeah, well, you want to figure out something that you're doing with your life that's worth not getting drunk and screwing up.
That's exactly what happened to me in Prince George. It was exactly that conversation with myself. And initially I decided 6 months off, and I just never went back to it.
Like there were times I was like, man, I could never be a sober person because I'm afraid of, I can't communicate with women, or I'm afraid to, stand around in a circle with tough guys without having like a beer in my hand, or like all these little crutches, I can't. And then I remember when I got like 90 days sober, I was just like, holy shit, man. Like it was like the first time I'd ever done something like for myself,
Yeah.
And it just, man, it felt unprecedented.
Yeah. The other thing I think that happened too is I started drinking when I was pretty young, 14, and I had a certain degree of social anxiety. I mean, I'm very extroverted, but I think everybody has a certain degree of social anxiety when they're like 14, because like, what the hell do you know, and that's probably exacerbated around girls. That alcohol, because it enhances sociability and also suppresses anxiety, is a good social anxiety medication. But the problem is you don't learn how to conduct yourself as a sober individual in social circumstances.
Yes.
And you learn very rapidly to rely on the alcohol, not only as a social lubricant, but as the basis of your social behavior. And I would say, to young people who are watching, listening, that's a stupid plan. You should learn how to be in a social group with others when you're sober so that you bloody well know how to do it, especially if you're planning to do anything even vaguely serious and responsible with your life, which is, probably something you should be doing.
A good friend of mine, exactly my age, within a few months, I quit at 21, he quit at 31, and we were both 34, 35. We were out with some friends and we're dancing and having fun, and I'm just me. And I'm actually more introverted, so I'm not super outgoing, but I'm still having a great time. I'm dancing, I'm having fun, and And he comes up to me and he goes, how do you do that? He goes, I can't do that now without the alcohol. And I go, because I learned to do it without the alcohol.
Makes you more enthusiastic and more full of positive emotion. And the second thing it does is reduce anxiety.
Yeah.
And so if you are a bit more socially anxious and you also have that positive response to alcohol, which everyone doesn't have, by the way, then it's a great drug. But the problem is it's a great drug for the moment.
Right.
Right. There's consequences.
Losing my family, that was the thing that scared me so much. That was the bottom I hit, that my family's going to go away because of my behaviors that I brought home from the road. I got kicked out of the house by my wife. I was living on my own somewhere, and I did not want that. She did the right thing. She kicked my ass right the hell out of the house, That scared the shit out of me.
How long have you been sober now?
15 years. Friggin' saved my life, saved our family, and working through that stuff. So very grateful for my wife. She's the one that didn't ask for this shit. She walked through fire with me, and we walked out together stronger, way stronger than we ever would have been before.
So why quit drinking? So I don't end up in hell. Hey, there's a reason to stop. And then if you make that hell real, it's like, here's all the details of my personal hell. Yes, let's avoid that.
Right.
So then you have something to run the hell away from.
Right, so now you have something towards and something to run away from.
And we've been brainwashed by alcohol industries to believe that quitting is really hard. It's part of their propaganda. They're the ones pushing that message, which seems like, why would they tell people it's hard? But they're doing that because if it's hard, you won't quit.
If you're starting to put your life together and you have friends that object, those are not friends. Those are just people you know. They're not friends, because a friend is someone, this is one of the hallmarks of a friend. Here's 2 hallmarks. A friend is someone you can tell bad news to, and they won't tell you why you're an idiot, and they won't interfere with your suffering. They'll just listen, and maybe they'll suffer along with you. Okay, so you can tell bad news to them, and they won't tell you some worse thing that happened to them. They'll listen, and they'll suffer along with you. But a friend is also someone you can tell good news to, and the friend will say, wow, in this veil of tears, something good happened to you. Great, man.
Congrats.
I'm wonderful. It's rare. It's unlikely. Good for you. I hope 10 more things like that happen. And they're not envious, and they're not jealous, and they're not one-upping you. If you're trying to get your life together and your friends get in the way, that's actually real useful for you, because you've now identified who your friends aren't. And you might think, well, I can't give them up. It's like, oh, yes, you can. And not only can you should, and it would be better for them. Because if they're aiming down and they want you going down with them, there's nothing good about what's happening to them, and there's certainly nothing good about that for you.
I learned myself. I had a brother, Fred, great guy, best looking guy, best personality, much better than mine. But he had a problem. He had a problem with alcohol. And he would tell me, don't drink, don't drink. He was substantially older, and I listened to him and I respected, but he would constantly tell me, don't drink. He'd also add, don't smoke. But he would say it over and over and over again. And to this day, I've never had a drink, and I have no longing for it. I have no interest in it. To this day, I've never had a cigarette. Don't worry, those are only 2 of my good things. I don't want to tell you about the bad things. There's plenty of bad things too, but he really helped me. I had somebody that guided me, and he had a very, very, very tough life because of alcohol, believe me. Very, very tough life. He was a strong guy, but it was a tough thing that he was going through. But I learned because of Fred. I learned. And that's what I think is so important. This was an idea that I had, where if we can teach young people not to take drugs, just not to take them. When I see friends of mine that are having difficulty with not having that drink at dinner, where it's literally almost impossible for them to stop, I say to myself, I can't even understand it. Why would that be difficult? The fact is, if we can teach young people and people generally not to start, it's really, really easy not to take them.